Hey, Gavan and friends, welcome to the 10th, can you believe it, 10th episode of the Lord of the Wrongs podcast, the only Tolkien podcast that the professor himself would dismiss as juvenile and crass. My name's Dan Zerby. I'm here with my good friend and co-host, Sean Kelly, and together we'll be discussing the writings, adaptation, news, games, and everything else around J.R. Tolkien's Legendarium, and we're doing it in a way that he probably wouldn't like very much. Sean, we're doing part 2 of our Rings of Chowder.
The Rings of Chowder, part
Going
2.
over the first season, first season of Rings of Power, part 2.
Yeah, who knows? This might even turn into a 3-parter, Zerb.
Yeah, we're gonna warn you guys right off the top that
we've got a lot to say.
There's a lot to say. There's just a lot to talk about. I mean, even if we didn't have a lot to say, there's plenty just to go over.
Yeah, we didn't even. We kind of rushed through the first half a little bit, and
yeah, I feel like less happened in the first 4 episodes than the second 4 episodes, though.
That's true. It was mostly set up and all that.
Yeah, I don't feel like we had to rush ourselves too much. I think we did okay.
Yeah, I think we covered most of it. But before we get into it, I think we have to put on the old dunce caps, a nice big cone of shame. And pop in correction corner. Zerby, you want to kick us off?
I do. So anybody who's heard the show before might come to expect that our Tolkien fun fact sorry, Sean, I'm trying to just drag you down with me.
No, mine are pretty bad.
Anyway, so the Tolkien fun fact that he was a plumber who had to fight mushrooms and turtles and stuff. I was confusing Tolkien with Mario of the Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah, with the movie coming out and everything, I feel like it's been easy to get all these adaptations mixed up.
Yeah, I mean, I often confuse like C.S. Lewis with Bowser. It happens all the time. It's just,
Yeah, I mean, the resemblance is uncanny, I would say.
Ooh, throwing shade at C.S. Lewis.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know. Bowser is pretty cool sometimes.
Bowser is pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, he's a good guy in Mario Kart. I didn't see the Super Mario Brothers movie, but
no, me neither.
I think Jack Black plays him.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like not even Jack Black made me like excited to see that movie.
Yeah, I'll watch it when it's free.
Yeah, exactly. If it's something when it goes on a platform I'm already paying for. Yeah.
I also, first of all, I wanted to mention apologies for my mic quality last episode, but we're back with the better mic, so hopefully my levels are more level. But also, I wanted to mention up top as well, because we're gonna end up talking about the Stranger and Wizards and stuff that in a previous episode, I don't remember which, I had mentioned that the Blue Wizards went into Harad in the east, but it was really not even that specific. They went into Harad and Rune. They just kind of went east.
They went east, yeah. They went to the eastern part of the Middle Earth continent that we really don't know very much about.
Yeah, and so sorry, I thought there was even some specificity, but that's
it's even more vague. Like, there really is just nothing that we know for sure about the Blue Wizards and what they do once they get to Middle Earth.
Which I might circle back to later. But for now, do you want to just get into the our rewatch?
Yeah, let's get into the second half of the first season's Ring of Power.
I mean, starting with episode 5, I liked some parts, and I definitely disliked some parts.
Yeah, agreed. Episode 5 does have Poppy's walking song, which is corny as hell, and I love it so much. I really do love that song.
My note on that song.
It's cheesy. It's a little corny.
Yeah, it is. It's cute but corny, which I mean, I guess it tracks for that storyline. But
yeah, right. Yeah, it does. It works. It's not like it doesn't feel out of place level of corny. Although I will say, it felt a little bit. I don't even hate the lyric of like not all those who wonder and wander are lost. I don't like hate it. It just seemed like a kind of
like fan service.
Yeah, it was a little fan servicey.
See, the thing,
But,
the note I have about this, and in a lot of movies now, I feel like D&D had it with, but I mean, the main guy was a bard and everything. I feel like everybody's trying to get a little piece of the Witcher pie when it comes to like a catchy, like medieval song in like a fantasy setting.
Yeah, they'll have. Yeah, it's like, can we make a song that sounds like it belongs in this setting, but also is a banger in real life?
Yeah, yeah, like
Toss a Coin to Your Witcher is a great song.
Yeah, no, it is, but like now it's become this like weird trope that I'm like, it feels so obvious every time where I'm like, do we need to? I mean, like once again, I get it in the D&D movie, the guy, the main guy's a bard. Did you see it?
I still have not seen it, but everybody said it was really fun.
It was way better than I thought it would be. Than I was expecting. But I mean, this isn't really a spoiler. He sings a little song, like something, well, you can, or I don't know, something like that. And it's
a bard sings a song.
I know it sounds great, but it
outrageous.
Still, even then, it felt very like kind of ham-fisted, like hey, maybe we can we'll be a TikTok sound now.
Yeah, that song in The Witcher really did
started a trend.
It definitely did. I mean, it's a banger. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, it's catchy. I mean, I don't totally hate it, but it's just kind of, it's always a little, it almost takes you out of it when you hear something and you're like, you feel them doing it on purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed.
It was like there's this movie, what is it? Like, A Dog's Purpose. Do you know
I've never seen it, but I've heard of it.
It's literally like, I mean, be forewarned. By the way, spoiler warning for like the entire show once again. If you haven't watched the first part.
Yeah, I mean, it's been out for a while now. But we're gonna talk about what happens in it, just so you know, guys.
But
don't get mad.
Here's a spoiler warning. Or spoiler warning for A Dog's Purpose. A lot of dogs die in it, like like
Jesus Christ.
The main character is like a reincarnating dog. So he keeps like like trying to figure out what a dog's
hit by a milk truck at any point or what?
I actually,
oh god,
he might. he gets killed by, like, in literally first couple of minutes of the movie, he gets killed by like animal catchers or whatever, and it's like it's so dark. But
God,
the point of me bringing this up is it feels so like the hand of the screenwriters feels so blatant in trying to like make you sad that it's literally I was not upset the entire time. Like, you watch Marley and Me, you're gonna have a breakdown.
Right. I was gonna say, it's like, you know how everyone's favorite part of Old Yeller is the end?
Yeah. But like it's just one of those times where like feeling the hand of the author just takes you out of it. And I feel like
it's a peek behind the curtain.
There are a few other things like that where you can, things that just take you out of the immersion, and it happens in Rings of Power and stuff too. But anyway, that's enough of that.
This is not a podcast sidebar. It's like, you know what? Maybe we should make this podcast about movies about dogs.
Wow, yeah. As much as I'd love to just upset people for
well, as they don't all have to be sad dog movies. They can.
Aren't they all sad at some point or another?
Secret Life of Pets was a very cute movie.
Yeah, it was animated Pets too. Yeah, whatever.
Anyway,
okay. So shortly after
Poppy's
that,
walking song.
Yeah. Shortly after that, I believe they introduced the cultists, right?
Yeah. We finally see the cultists. Or actually, did we see them briefly in episode 4? just like a quick shot of the main like priestess, right?
I think so, but
And
like this is where
non-gender
they,
specific priest or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
they start like really like the
Yeah.
cultist storyline. One of those things of the pacing where like the entire
Yeah.
cultist storyline takes place in basically the last 3 episodes, like
Yeah.
even more like the last 2 episodes basically. But
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't not to start off on a negative note, but the second half of the show is really where the pacing issues become very obvious. Of like, oh, okay, they're really moving that forward. Okay, well,
yeah, it's
it's
a
like I guess you better get on board because it's happening.
to me it didn't feel terrible. Like, I mean, it felt
No,
rushed overall, but there are movies where the pacing literally, like, as I'm watching it, like, it takes me out of it completely.
right?
This wasn't like egregious. It was
Yeah,
definitely like ramped up more than it probably should have.
yeah, I agree. They just could have like alluded to these cultists as soon like the episode right after the stranger falls out of the sky. I mean, I feel
Yeah.
like they should have started those characters just like peeking in earlier, and they could have built more mystery around it. Not to add to the mystery box, but it would have
They
been like a,
they were an okay mystery to have though, because
yeah, definitely.
we don't
That
know
was interesting. It was like we had no idea what was going to be happening.
yeah.
Like we knew Sauron was going to be revealed at some point, but we had no idea who these people were.
And like
And
I
it's
said
pretty neat.
in the last episode, like I don't like that a lot of the mysteries are playing off our like prior knowledge of the lore and like trying to
Yes,
subvert that.
agreed.
And
Yeah,
this wasn't, because it was an addition, but I don't think it was like necessarily like against the the spirit of the
yeah,
work and everything like some others.
yeah.
But
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was a good mystery that I think they could have done even a little bit more of teasing out with.
yeah, and to replace other mysteries.
Yeah, that they shouldn't have had mysteries about.
Yeah. But I
um,
mean, what do you think of the cultists?
um, I think they're compelling and really interesting. My guess about them is that they are like they're probably the main I don't know, I guess leader figures in like the runic cult of Sauron that we know exists,
Yeah,
or at
that
least
makes sense.
yeah, that seems
I
to be because
but
they're clearly from Rune. They want to take him back to Rune, and he kicks
yes.
their butts. Sorry, that's a spoiler for the last episode.
Yeah, we don't. We already covered that.
Yeah, but he's and he goes anyway because he's trying to find those stars for whatever reason. I'm sure that will be revealed at some point.
Well, he
But I find
also
it compelling and interesting.
yeah. Well, when he banished them. So the interesting thing, and something that I don't mind overall about this show, is the like this sort of emphasis on the unseen world and
Yeah,
like wraiths and magia and stuff. Like
yeah,
when he banished them, they kind of turned into almost ring wraith sort of figures.
yeah. They did. Yeah, he like exposes them for what they look like, and then they weirdly like turn into spirit moths as they get like sent off,
Yeah, I know.
which was I'm not
I'm
sure
not.
what to make of that. I didn't hate it. It looked really cool.
Yeah, it
I
was a
mean,
cool
it
effect.
looked neat. I don't know what to make of it really. I don't know if I liked it or not because
I
I just
don't.
don't.
The only thing
Little
I
graphic.
wouldn't necessarily like if it was literally just there to be like, "Ooh, this might be Gandalf,"
Yeah,
because
right.
of the moth
Exactly.
connection.
Yeah, with the Peter Jackson movies. I don't
Yeah,
hate those connections that they make, even though sometimes it does seem a little ham-fisted.
yeah, yeah,
The connections to the Jackson movies. I mean, they kind of have to do that, I think, because
yeah. I think
most.
a lot of people's visual, like,
Yeah, yeah, the
uh,
visual ties to the movies. Yeah,
yeah,
there's a
that'll
lot of
bring
it.
more people in and more people. Like, well, I
Yeah,
was
it makes
gonna
it more
comment
accessible.
for example, the Balrog, like they stuck with Jackson's
Yeah,
interpretation, but they kind of couldn't like stray from that.
yeah,
Probably more than half the people watching are only gonna know the Balrog like that, and
yeah,
so and once again, I don't mind Jackson's. It might not be like the most accurate to the description or whatever, but it's still
yeah.
a pretty awesome design.
Yeah, it's so cool looking. Yeah, no, I don't think anybody who's critical of the Balrog is not like saying so because it doesn't look cool enough. You know, that's definitely not the issue.
Yes, exactly.
They're in that one shot where we do see the Balrog at the end of episode 6. I think was it 6 or 7? It would have to be 6, right? Or maybe it's 5.
Whichever one.
Either way.
Oh no, it was 7 because it was after.
Yeah, because the end of episode 6 is. Yeah, and the end of episode 6 is the eruption of Mount Doom.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, it did seem to look like, again, this is not a hill I'm gonna die on or really even be that upset about. It looks like there may have been wings on that Balrog. There was like some movement that implied that.
Yeah, it's
I wouldn't mind if they took the wings off too, but I don't really care that much either way.
I wouldn't mind, but
not that big a deal.
Yeah,
but they are metaphorical wings in the book, everybody. They don't actually have wings.
Yeah.
Because why would they? Like, two of the Balrogs we know about die from falling. So if they had wings, that's not helping them at all. Reason. They can't fly. Yeah.
So Balrogs are basically like penguins.
I was thinking more of like ostriches or emus, but sure.
Yeah.
Just because they tend to be more violent than penguins.
And he does describe in detail its long, graceful neck. So that
yeah, that's right.
Makes sense.
And its fluffy ass feathers. Yeah.
All right. So,
anyway,
another thing early on in the, I guess if we're kind of in the Harfoot storyline anyway. So when they were going through the woods and they kind of got chased by the wolves. First of all, one thing I noticed was there were a bunch of ruins in those woods, and I was just kind of wondering what those could be.
Yeah, you know, I noticed it, but just didn't really think of it. I'm trying to think of exactly where they
were. So they're like east of the end when going south to. I think they were like around the south side of Mirkwood, probably like the south.
I was going to say
west corner.
Yeah, they were in. Well, they weren't the Brownlands at the time, but I think they were in what becomes the Brownlands.
Yeah,
north of the Emyn Moil.
So, and for those at home, that's kind of north of the Dead Marshes, like in between the Dead Marshes and the bottom of Mirkwood, or I guess Greenwood the Great at the time.
Yeah, in the book, in Lord of the Rings, they talk about, as they're traveling from Lorien in the boats, like how much of that trip is going through seeing the Brownlands and how it's boring. It's boring and also terrifying because they feel exposed because there's nothing there.
I mean,
but that happens later. That happens at the end of the show, actually. So
yeah. But I guess they were just kind of on their way down there, and there were a bunch of ruins. So it's just, like the Numenorians
so I don't know what that would be.
Wouldn't have, I mean, I guess I'll talk about this later again, but like they wouldn't have colonized all the way up there and created ruins that are now ancient,
Yeah,
like
I think
would be new.
Yeah, relatively new at least. I mean, we know that there were Numenorian colonies in the show. There were Numenorian colonies before they went back in this most recent time, because they mention in I think the last episode they mentioned Pelargir. They mentioned that the Southlandings are going to Pelargir.
Yeah, that I was gonna mention that,
the delta of the Anduin.
Yeah, kind of like it's one of those things where you wouldn't expect it with the timeline they're doing, but then you're like, oh, it's the same as with Galadriel, or with Celeborn, Galadriel's husband. It's like, oh wait, she's like married already. Yes. Where is he? Same as
she thinks he's dead. Yeah, okay.
They colonized already. Where are these colonies? We haven't seen. Like they didn't mention it at all earlier in the
That's the first time we hear about it. And like, oh yeah, by the way, we should mention that they've been to Middle Earth already.
Because
it seems to imply earlier in the season that that for whatever reason the Numenorians had not traveled to Middle Earth at all, which is not the case in the show or in the original story in the books. Yeah.
Well, anyway, I just thought it was interesting to see those
Yeah.
ruins and just sort of like, are they people from Ravanian or, what's going on there?
I was gonna say, yeah, right. Are they yeah.
Yeah, but
Who knows? Could have been the
I mean,
elves. I mean, who knows?
right after that is when they're attacked by the wolves, and just watching the stranger just absolutely huck that wolf was just very
or yeet, as the kids said like 5 years ago.
Yeah, he yeeted the shit out of that wolf. Just picked it up.
Yeah, I mean, it really did. I mean, that's what I would do if like I was being attacked. I would try to like get him away from me and show him that I'm strong. Like,
yeah, but I'm not
don't
gonna
bite me.
I don't think I could throw like a regular dog that far. I can't imagine that big freaking wolf.
A coyote maybe, but probably not a wolf or a warg.
Yeah, certainly not a warg. Those things are jacked as all get out.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently you can just grab them by the tusks because they have those for some reason.
Yeah.
Again, I don't want to harp on how much I don't love the design of the wargs, but I really don't love the design of the wargs.
It could be a little simpler, but
yeah. But either way, it's
overall, it's still it's still
they're not main characters, so
yeah, you still get the scary. It's a warg.
They serve their purpose as well as they need to. Yeah, it's fine. It's not something that's a major problem. It's just not my favorite thing. Yeah.
Did you have anything on the sort of early Harfoot stuff?
Yeah, let's see. What did I have? Most of what I have on the Harfoots is a little bit later once that storyline really ramps up. I will say, I feel like throughout they're making a lot of this. I feel like Nori and the Harfoots, they're just making a lot of assumptions about the stranger. Like they're all like they get scared of him. Like he kind of hurts Nori a little bit by accident, and when he tries to heal the tree and the branch falls and it almost hits Nori's sister.
Yeah, because I'm
like, you know what? That's just stupid under a dead
tree.
Yeah,
yes,
he ran over to it. It's like that's the dumb kid's fault. It's like you guys know that he's not sure who he is or how to control the powers that he has. Why are you touching him and going close to him when he's trying to practice magic? Like that's on you a little bit. I think that's on you.
Yeah, I do like how they did his magic with the words of power, because that's that's a lot of. I mean, Tolkien never describes magic in detail really at all. Mostly, he talks.
But there's usually magic words, like when Gandalf lights a fire on the Misty Mountains on Caradhras.
Yeah,
he says some magic words when they go to the. Before he figures out the password for the Walls of Moria, he says a lot of like
random
magic words.
Yeah.
Well,
because it seems like the magic in Tolkien is almost like them speaking something into, like willing it into existence by speaking it as like a truth or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I love that bit in Lord of the Rings in the book about when they're in Lorien and Sam's talking about how he wants to see some like elf magic, and Galadriel's like, I don't know what you mean by that, because it's not magic to them; it's just what they do. It's like their cloaks aren't magic at all as far as they're concerned. It's like, no, this is just an elvish cloak.
We just made them really good.
Yeah, it's like we're just really good at what we do, and that's just like the nature of what the elves do, is that there's a little magic to it.
Yeah.
So I always kind of viewed the wizards working magic kind of like that, and like this is what I do. This is the whole point of me, is to do this.
It's just a nature thing instead of like a learned sort of
right. Yeah, which like we do know
magic.
Yeah, right. But which we do know you like kind of can learn sorcery, but it's usually in Middle Earth, but it's not good. Like anytime a mortal learns to be a sorcerer of some kind, they become like a Nazgul. So
it's sort of like the cultists.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
There's sort of a precedent for that. I mean, he mentions human sorcerers and things like that, but you never really see them.
We don't really come across them very much. at all, actually. But we do know that they exist.
But do you want to just wrap up this whole storyline? Because I feel like it doesn't really interconnect with the other ones.
No, it really doesn't. I mean, they kind of interconnect, like Orodruian erupting, destroys
like
a bunch
the
of
world event. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it destroys some of the orchard that the Harfoots travel to. But yeah, other than that, it doesn't really connect to the larger story very much. Like the stranger that is, in the last episode, like, oh, I'm not a bad guy. That's cool.
I
And
see. I thought
yeah,
it just really didn't have any like major disappointments for me, pretty much the whole way through.
yeah. Well, it's completely fill in the blank. Really, there's no mention of anything the Harfoots do at all, like any of the like proto hobbits do
Yeah,
before the Shire is
just
set up.
sort of what they were
So
like, and they're true to
yeah,
that.
yeah, like the idea that they're nomadic people, and yeah,
I mean, you get
I
some
like
of
how they
it.
fleshed out that culture and everything. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, you get some of it in Concerning Hobbits at the beginning of Lord of the
Right,
Rings.
right, yeah,
And he sort of touches on the nature of hobbits and the different clans, and
yeah. The Harfoots, the Stewars, and the Fallowhides are the three like type of proto hobbits before they were
yeah,
hobbits. Exactly.
they're pretty consistent with that. So
Yeah,
whether or not Gandalf or whomever the stranger is should be there is like kind of the only real
break
you
with
know
lore. Yeah.
yeah
Yeah, there shouldn't be any wizards in the Second Age at all, like in theory.
yeah
But
that
uh
I mean, I'm not like yeah, I'm not totally um like completely frustrated by it or anything.
yeah,
Like it's not a bad inclusion.
yeah, it's like it's fine. I mean, it's one of the challenges of what the story that they've decided to tell is that there aren't a ton of characters that everybody already knows. So bringing in a wizard, even though they're not supposed to be there until, I mean, especially if the stranger ends up being Gandalf, like in theory, he's not supposed to be there until Third Age 1000, 1,000 years after Sauron's defeat. So,
Yeah,
but again,
like
yeah, I'm with you though. It doesn't bother me that much, honestly. I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna go with it.
because I think it's also because it's a lore break, but it doesn't really violate the spirit of Tolkien
Yeah,
stories
yeah.
like
Just
some other ones do.
it compresses the storyline, which is
Like
what they have to
yeah,
do which is what they're doing anyway. So
yeah,
yeah,
it changes the story around, but it doesn't really it doesn't go against the nature of it. So it doesn't.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not totally. The only other thing that's weird to me is that I forgot to mention it earlier that the cultists know what an Istar is.
Yeah, that
Like,
is
why would they know
weird.
that?
Yeah, why would they? Yeah, yeah, why would
The
he?
Astari,
Yeah,
first of all, I mean, obviously didn't show up until Third Age
yeah.
1000, but
But even
the,
if, let's say, they show up at the end of the Second Age, how would they know about that order?
yeah, they
Yeah,
didn't
the Order of
exist.
the Astari. Yeah, exactly. And
Like,
and it's not like they didn't like announce that the Valar didn't be like, "Hey, Middle Earth, we're sending over some guys to help." It's not like there was a big announcement that this order was being sent.
yeah,
So
they just kind of rocked up by a ship in the Grey Havens, and they were
yeah,
just
they're like,
like,
"Let's
"Oh,
get to
hey, good
work,
to see you
fellas."
guys."
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's
See if we
no
can.
precedent for it. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
So yeah, like Sean and I, as we usually do, we're talking a little bit before we started recording. And my guess is that because they can't talk about the Blue Wizards really, because they don't have the rights to it. Like they can mention Blue
Yeah.
Wizards if they wanted to, but they can't mention their names. And I don't think they can even say that they went east. I think that's only in the Silmarillion and Unfinished Tales. So what it seems like maybe they're doing is having whichever wizard the stranger turns out to be. I'm pretty sure it's Gandalf.
Probably, yeah.
They're like giving Gandalf the role of the Blue Wizards so they can explore like what happens when they went east. which is kind of interesting in and of itself. I'm interested to see what happens. I expect that the Stranger and Nori are going to come across as cultists again, and maybe not in the second season, but maybe they will. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, so well, first of all, it'll be cool to see Rune no matter what. Like it's a totally unexplored area.
I'm very excited for that.
But my prediction, and I'd forgotten that they don't have the rights to them really, but my prediction is that it's Alatar, one of the Blue Wizards, because he was one of the first ones picked.
He was, or volunteered, I think, even.
Yeah. Well, yes, yeah. And, he obviously we know they go into the east, as I had corrected before, but I don't know. I feel like they might just be, and the other thing is those are their only names that Tolkien gives. Yeah. So they might, whether they end up requesting his name later from the Tolkien estate or whatever, or they just give him another name that he's known by in Rune or something.
Yeah.
It could potentially be one of them.
Yeah. That is one solid, again, it's not a big deal, but that would be a solid break with the lore, because Gandalf specifically never goes east. That is in the Lord of the Rings. The east, he never went. He went everywhere except for east. He did not. But again, it's not that big a deal for me.
Yeah, there's a lot pointing to sort of both of them, because a lot of
that
the
follow your nose thing.
Yeah, that
it was also very much like, all right, yeah, he's in gray.
He's also the only one who knew hobbits really and spent any time with them that we know of.
Yeah. So that's, and certainly be the only one who paid any real attention to them.
Yeah, the only one that cared about them. And but a lot of the things he's doing would be more in line with the Blue Wizards. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. That. But overall I like the storyline. I like the direction it went, and I had few grievances that were that big a deal.
I didn't have so many grievances as much as I had just pointing out an inconsistency. For example, like the stranger can't see the stars because they're only visible in a different part of the world. Why would that be the case if the Earth is flat? Which, by the way, Middle Earth at this point in Arda's history, the Earth is flat.
Yeah, because it doesn't until.
So there's no reason why he wouldn't be able to see those stars.
Yeah, until
but they might avoid the whole flat Earth thing be coming around at the end of the.
Yeah, that would just be unnecessarily complicated. But and it's not. It's one of those things that's not. It doesn't.
Again, it's
to be explained.
They might not even cover the fact that the Earth is flat and becomes round at the end of the Second Age, at the beginning of the Third Age. They might not mention it at all. It's not that vital, I guess, to what.
To the story and everything. Yeah, it was more Tolkien's way of
separate. Okay, this is the end of an age, and now the new age is starting.
Yeah, and turning the mythical Earth of legend into our more real version of Earth.
I had one other question about the something that I just not so much I didn't like, but I don't remember if I mentioned this in the last episode. The whole thing of Sauron being called Sauron by the cultists or by
he never says it himself, but
Sauron is not his name.
It's
not
Anatar
his name
at this point.
Well, Anatar is
or
the disguise to corrupt to trick Celebrimbor, which is not the road they went.
Looked like an elf, by the way.
Yes, he's Anatar, Lord of Gifts, which is why people who are familiar with the lore before watching the show, as soon as Halbrand says "call it a gift," everybody was like, "Okay, he's Sauron."
Yes, I made a note about that.
This information that Celebrimbor, the great maker, would definitely know already. Here's a gift of information to you.
Yeah, it was weird to hear the cultists call him that, though. I mean, I get
because again, Sauron means abominable one. The elves gave him that name because his true name when he was just a good old fashioned Maya studying under Aule was Myron, which means excellent, which is kind of awesome. Again, I'm sorry if I said this in the last episode. I just don't remember.
No,
This
yeah,
is
I
why
don't think you covered the Tarmyron.
Yeah, God, I love it so much. He often refers to himself as Tar Myron, which means King Excellent, which I just love so much.
Yeah,
It's like that's a name Sauron would go by. Yeah, absolutely.
But I think overall for Sauron, maybe we can end our discussion with his whole storyline because it's probably the most important and has a lot to talk about. So do you want to talk about the dwarves first? Because that kind of is also sort of independent.
So one of the things we see in the second half is during the fourth, scamming Gil Galad out of a new table.
So great.
I love it so much where he's like, this is a sacred rock, and later he's like, you dumb idiots. I really do love that he just scams the Elven King out of the new table.
And then when they're walking away, just giving this string of great idioms.
Yeah.
And like give us the meat and give it to us raw. Give me the meat and
give it to me raw. Yeah, that's yes, yeah, we have to mention that line. Oh man, I hate it and love it so much.
See, I just flat out love it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it reminded me, damn it, I'm trying to remember. There's a line in the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings movies that reminds me a lot of, and I cannot remember what
Gimli says or something.
I don't know if it's necessarily something Gimli says, but somebody says something that's like, wait, what?
I don't remember the line you're thinking of, but it could be like Gimli when they're eating in Edoras, maybe. Something like that. I don't know. We'll try and come up with the line later.
Yeah, but if I remember, I'll mention it. But
I liked it.
Makes me laugh. It makes me laugh every time.
But I mean, overall, still the Elrond and Durin friendship is a huge theme in Tolkien, and like
absolutely.
how close friends I mean, you see it with Frodo and Sam, especially in Lord of the Rings, but it's throughout those books, the three hunters and the people that Éomer and Faramir, like everybody just being friends, who are able to stand by each other in times of hardship and everything is it's something that Tolkien definitely learned in the war, I think.
Yeah. Well, and it's a major theme, and not just of friendship, but of people who are different from each other coming together for a good reason and a good cause,
and like the love they can share. And
that's what makes Legolas and Gimli's friendship so lovely and beautiful. It's and that's definitely reflected in Durin and Elrond's friendship.
Yeah.
So it really is. It's lovely. I love it. I really do.
Genuine. I don't think we talked about Disa though in the last episode,
which is kind of crazy because I love Disa. I think she's wonderful.
I don't think she was in it as much as she is in, and like, doing as much as in the later episodes. But yeah, she's awesome. I love her character.
Me too. I'm not sure how I feel about her, like Lady Macbeth style monologue.
Yes, the only thing like
it's interesting.
End.
It's definitely interesting, but I'm like it seemed like it didn't seem out of character, but it was like kind of surprising to see that kind of ambition coming from her, because we just hadn't seen that before.
Yeah, I guess
there's a lot we don't know about these characters too. Yeah. There's still a lot we have to learn. So
it was kind of a bit of a shock, but I think so. One thing that bothered me a little overall about the Mithril and the dwarves and everything was that it felt like the blame was almost just being put on the elves for the dwarves mining the Mithril and delving too greedily and too deep. Like it was their fault.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure what to make of that. It is really weird, this idea that like if there's one thing we know about dwarves, it's that they like mining, and they like gold and precious metals and stuff, and
Shiny things.
they like shiny things, and they like making things with shiny things. So this idea that they would not mine the mithril for their own purposes,
Yeah, just
like they don't
during
need
the
a
third.
motivation from the elf to try to help the elves to be mining for this stuff. It's
Yeah,
what they
they're
would be doing
greedy.
that anyway.
Dwarves are
Yeah.
greedy, and it kind of felt like they weren't coming off that way,
Yeah.
except for Disa. Like Disa's really the only one. Durin the Fourth was trying to do it for a selfless reason to help the elves.
Yeah.
And Disa seemed like the only one who was like, that mithril is
Like,
ours.
guys, this stuff is great. Yeah.
Yeah. When in reality, it seems like it would be, everybody would be on board. That would make more sense.
Yeah, it doesn't it doesn't really track with what we know about dwarves, that they would, not that they wouldn't be cautious and like it wouldn't bother them that their people could get hurt while mining. Obviously they would care about that, but the idea that they wouldn't try at all, like that the king would be like, no, it's not worth it. This incredible ore. Yeah, this incredible ore that is incredibly strong, incredibly light, incredibly beautiful. We don't want it because it's too dangerous. Like that does not track with what we know about dwarves, in my view, at least.
I think that,
again, I don't hate it. It's making for an interesting story and everything,
So I've got three things. First of all, I would like to make a prediction for next season, and that is that it will mainly revolve around the creation of the 7 rings for the dwarves. I think the first 4 seasons are all going to revolve around a line of the Ringverse.
Yeah, I'm wondering about the rings. One of the last things I wrote in my notes here was, in this next season, like, so the rings made for men and for dwarves is Sauron / Halbrand.
Yeah.
Is he going to be making these by himself then? Because like,
no, I think Celebrimbor is going to ignore Galadriel's advice and work with Halbrand again.
That's true, because she does not tell them that he is Sauron.
I think Elrond has kind of figured it out, but
yeah, he knows that Halbrand is not the king of the Southlands. Yeah. We know that. He clearly knows that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's figured out that he's Sauron.
Either way, Celebrimbor doesn't know that, and he's vain and everything. So I think he could
still be tricked. Yeah.
I think the second season is going to be them crafting the 7 rings and basically using that to cement their alliance with the dwarves. And that's when they create this sort of, a kinship and alliance between them. They get the door made, all that. And I think it might end with...
I'm excited to meet Narvi.
Yeah.
Narvi, who makes the doors of Moria that we end up seeing in Fellowship.
Who's Narvi? Who's this character?
Yeah,
but
it's a very minor character. But,
it's just a name.
But like he'll probably. I mean, that character will probably end up existing in this show, I would imagine. Yeah, it'd be pretty cool.
But I think it's gonna be the creation of the 7 rings, end with the Balrog destroying Moria. And then I think the next season will be the 9 for men and the corruption of Numenor. And then after that, it's going to be the One Ring and Sauron coming into his own as a Dark Lord.
I'm trying to remember, when exactly does Moria get abandoned and become Moria, actually? Because it's Khazad-dûm.
It's later, but it's kind of hard to make predictions
though, isn't it?
On... Yeah, the wizards come in the Third Age too. So
right. Oh yeah, I don't. I'm just trying to remember the order in which it happened. It happens early Third Age though, doesn't it?
I think so. I mean, we could look at the Tale of Years, but
yeah.
Damn it, by the way, side note on the Tale of Ears that I mentioned earlier. Apparently, there is a Veggie Tales for Lord of the Rings.
Shut up! Really?
Lord of the Beans.
Jesus Christ. No pun intended with the
Yeah,
VHS.
a friend, yeah, a friend of mine sent. He listened to that and sent me a link to Lord of the Beans review, and I'm like, no, this is. I might have to watch it for a
Was it
future
Chris?
episode. Yes,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm like, I know he would know about it if anybody.
Yes,
he would.
the crossover of Veggie Tales and Lord of the Rings would be
Yeah.
in
So,
our
yep, he's a
one of our
dad.
friends' wheelhouse.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I might
Awesome.
have to watch that and review it.
Oh,
But
yeah.
anyway, so
Yeah.
on to
Yeah.
my other 2 points. One of them I wanted to mention, I guess it's a combined point, but I wanted to talk about Durin's father, but also just the name Durin.
Yeah, that should be mentioned for people who don't know. Yeah.
So it seems like they haven't included this. I thought it was in like the appendices or something in the Lord of the Rings, but maybe it was only in the Silmarillion, and that's why
I
they
think it's
can't.
in the appendices, actually. I think it is.
So the name Durin, the first was one of the first dwarves to awaken. The dwarves, we know were made by Aule the smith, the Valar or Vala, but they awakened simultaneously in a bunch of different places, and it was all families, so they were all pairs except for Durin.
Yeah.
And so
the long beard is the particular line.
And he and his kin settled somehow. I don't really know how he made a family just alone, but he
wakes in the north.
Yeah, he basically ends up taking over Moria, and after in the generations after that, they would name kings of that clan after Durin if they were sort of
they believe it's the reincarnation of Durin.
Yeah, basically.
It's kind of like how they pick the Dalai Lama. It's a little similar to that.
Actually. But so this name of Durin isn't a sort of patrilineal name.
Yeah, you don't get it just because you're the son of Durin.
It's
in fact, it's a guarantee that you will not get that name. If your father's name is Durin, there's no chance. Yeah, you'll be
because
that dwarf will have no children named Durin.
This is over thousands of years. I think there have only been how many?
I think there's a total of 7.
Yeah, I think so. Basically,
7 total Durins over the entire history of Arda.
Yeah, and they, I think it's 7 total. And when they name the 7th Durin, the world is going to end.
Yeah, that's what the dwarves believe, at least.
Yes, that's part of their belief system. Yeah. So, if we're already at 4 and it's just passing from father to son, we don't have a lot of time left.
Yeah, I know, right?
So it was just weird to see because I'm pretty sure they have that available, and I mean I guess they didn't want to go into it, but I feel like it wouldn't be hard to just say like have his like naming ceremony or something like that and say like you are going to be a great king. You are Durin the Fourth. You have like earned this sacred title, whatever. But yeah, it just felt like they could have used that and it wouldn't be that hard to include. But
but whatever, they did what they did.
It's not. Once again, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, it's not the end of the world. It's just another one of those things that it does break from the lore, and it does sometimes beg the question, why?
Yeah, it was one of those changes.
Like, why did they changed? Yeah. There are a few changes that they've made where you're just like, they didn't. Like they really didn't need to do that.
Hey, you could have just kept that original, but
yeah, I mean, again,
but I wanted to touch on his father because he's pretty strange for a dwarf for reasons we mentioned. Of like not being greedy, but also like why is he so mad at his son over this stuff?
He's we just don't know very much about his motivations, I guess.
I liked him as a king.
It a little Yeah, I mean, that I don't have the name of the actor who played him off here, but I think he was very effective. I mean, he was very
Absolutely.
believable. Yeah, it's an interesting character. I'm actually looking. I'm looking forward to seeing more of Durin the third and fourth's relationship because they have a really interesting dynamic where
Yeah.
there's like so much strife, but there's also clearly a lot of love.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just an
It's
interesting father-son relationship that
yeah.
I'm looking forward to see a little bit more of, actually.
Yeah, I don't know if he's trying to like temper him into a good king or what.
Yeah.
But I mean, both of the storylines we sort of talked about so far have been like I haven't been really, besides like the Metro motivation and a few like minor things, I haven't been disappointed by either one of them.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, me too. I mean,
Uh,
we're starting off with what seems to overall, from what I've heard talking to people and listening to various podcasts and YouTubers and stuff, the Harfoots and the dwarves are really seem to be everybody's favorite for the most part.
yeah, I mean, yeah, and once again, like I was talking about in the last episode, they were the. I mean, not that I didn't expect much from the dwarves, but it was another thing of like this. My expectations were kind of turned on their head because
Yeah,
these, I
I,
think, were at least the two most consistent storylines.
yeah, I'd agree with that. I think dwarves are interesting because I feel like when you're first getting into this whole legendarium and Lord of the Rings and all this stuff, like the dwarves aren't as interesting as like elves or even hobbits or stuff. And the more you like learn about the dwarves, like the more dear to you they've become. At least that's my experience.
Yeah,
Um,
I
I was
mean,
like,
they
the dwarves are
spawned.
they're just dwarves. And then just the more I learned about them and their how cool they are.
Yeah,
They
because we
got
don't get that much from Tolkien
Yeah, there's
on
a fair amount of mystery, but there's plenty there too that's really interesting. And the mystery
yeah,
just makes it more interesting, like their language that they don't teach to anybody, and like they all have
yeah,
secret names, which I'm glad they mentioned in this show, by the way, where Durin
yes.
almost tells Elrond his secret dwarf name that they don't tell to anybody, and Elrond's like, you know what? Hold on to that. I appreciate it. Hold on to it. That's a real. We both know how big a deal that is. Maybe hold on to that. You can keep that
Like,
to yourself for
listen,
now.
listen. We don't need to take this step in our relationship, okay?
I did think of that. I was like, you think Doran was like, oh man, I was ready to take that
Like
next
he
step.
definitely just said I
And
love you, and Elrond said
Elrond's like,
thanks.
that's great, bro. That's great, bro. I think you're a super fella.
You're a swell guy. Just hang
Yeah.
on to that.
Like, I'm fond of you as well, friend.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the one thing I will say about the dwarves and why it's kind of you do love them more as you go along is I feel like the more of the information you get is in Tolkien's like grander, more historical scale writing. So you're not hearing it's like
Yeah.
you don't know the characters that much. Like you're not listening to their
Right.
conversations very often. You're just hearing about like all the masked dwarves killing a dragon or whatever,
Yeah.
and like
Well,
you're
it's interesting.
hearing. Hmm?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too in the earlier writings, like, and when I say earlier, well, I do mean earlier because the Silmarillion does predate The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, but in his like earlier versions of dwarves, like elves hunt them, and that's not cool, but also like dwarves are kind of
They were more
evil.
evil, yeah,
Yeah, like
earlier
they're
drafts.
they're no better than orcs in a lot of the early writings, and then you go, if you're going chronologically, like then you go to the Hobbit, and there's that passage about dwarves are not heroes. They know they're, there's like they're
Yeah.
more or less decent if you don't expect too much. And then in the Lord of the Rings, it's like, oh, you know what? It elevates the dwarves even more with
Yeah,
how kick
they
ass and
are.
great Gimli is.
Yeah, they're
Um,
noble. And
yeah, and
noble.
there's yeah, and as Tolkien's life went on, I don't remember where this is. It might be in Unfinished Tales, but there's a passage somewhere where basically Tolkien writes like, "Oh, those stories from the early ages were lies. That dwarves were always good. Like at least the Longbeard family, like the descendants of Durin." Like they were always good, and that was actually lies that were told. Because the early, like the Silmarillion, it's like from the point of view of the elves. So like they were
that's true.
Arguably, I mean, we know how racist and ignorant they were at the beginning. Even though they were supposed to be cool, they weren't that cool to everybody.
Yeah, but so as always, there is a reason for their strife, at least in Middle Earth times, and that also naturally involves a Silmaril.
Goddamn Silmarils. Which again, we still don't have a shorthand for. We'll get to that in a different episode. But we're gonna have to get to that in a different episode. We will go into depth about the Silmarils.
Well, we'll have to get to a shorthand in a different episode. I'm going to just come up with something after this episode where I'm just going to devote time to it.
Yeah, but, enough's enough.
Yeah, I will say it makes sense to me that early on he thought the dwarves were going to be evil because I think a lot of Tolkien's his view on who was more corruptible and who would be more likely to become evil is I think a lot of it's based on their like craftiness and how much they love their own works. And so dwarves are very in line with Tolkien's idea for, like a lot of the followers of Aule became evil, like Sauron.
Yeah.
And Saruman.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
because they love their own works. And dwarves are just sort of naturally like that. But I think he sort of ended up pivoting them to a point where they love their own works, but they're not making progress for progress's sake. They're just sort of making things because they love making them instead of instead of like being proud of it.
Yeah, it's not like Feanor in the Silmarils where he's way too possessive of that which he made. It's like that's something that's shown to be a negative.
For sure.
In many places in the being too precious with the work of thine own hands. I think it's the
so I think
Silmarillion.
I think there's subtle differences that sort of he turned the dwarves into a more noble, albeit isolationist and crafty race, but they still there's some it factor that sort of separates them from elves and Maiar and stuff who were
they're hardy. I mean, dwarves, and sorry for people who don't know, the dwarves don't really get that corrupted by the rings of power that are given to them. They're just too hardy.
I think they're corrupted by them.
They become more greedy. Yeah, they become more greedy than they otherwise would be, but that's kind of it. They just don't fall under the power of the rings like men do. Men really.
I guess I'll say it seems like so the elves weren't corrupted by them because they sort of crafted them in their own power and everything, and they sort of have the power to withstand that. But the dwarves, I almost see it as like the men were corrupted individually. Everybody who wore them just became slaves to Sauron's will. But the dwarves, it seems like it almost corrupted their society because you heard about a lot of fighting over them and kind of taking them from each other. Dragons ended up taking them. So they did have a bad impact, but it wasn't.
It just brought out the more negative. It brought out some of the more negative traits of the individuals that are wearing the ring, and in dwarves that often brings out greed. But like we've said, it's
pride.
Like they don't fall.
Not in the same way.
They suffer from the rings. Again, like you could argue that if they hadn't been hoarding their wealth like they did, like Smaug never would have come, and so that could be all part of that. But they don't fall. They don't. They don't become wraiths. They don't. They don't ally themselves with Sauron.
So it was interesting to see the dwarves. I mean, seeing Khazad-dûm and all, and seeing more of a glimpse into their society. It was just overall like whether disregarding certain lore things and whatever. It was just, once again, it was just nice to see that come to life. That's all I think a lot of us wanted from this, was just to
definitely
be able to see a depiction of this world that we love so much.
Yeah.
So
all right, folks.
Yeah.
We're already at an hour of this episode, so we are going to end up splitting this up into a 3-parter for the entire first season of Rings of Power, because there's still so much to talk about. We've just talked about the Harfoots and the dwarves, and not even talked about really the connection with the elves and why Mithril's a thing, because that's a whole different can of worms we got to open up and talk about.
I do want to try to limit the talk on those.
Yeah, we will.
More egregious things.
We'll go over why the whole Mithril the Mithril. All right, sorry, I apologize. Anyway, we'll go over why that doesn't really make sense, and et cetera, or why there's such a strong negative reaction overall, not just ours. Many people had a strong negative reaction to that, but we'll go into that in the next episode, because there's so much more.
We had an hour discussion, and that was on like the easy to sort of storylines.
It's not what most of my notes are about.
Yeah.
I have so many notes still. Like I'm
almost scared. But
no need to be scared.
Okay.
But I want to say one more thing about the Harfoots before we wrap this episode up. Just that 2 things. One, Sadok's death was very moving.
Yes. That actually
very moving.
Was maybe the most emotional I was in the show.
It was heartbreaking. Yeah, because I found with a lot of the characters, like for as much as I have a huge crush on Mormeth Clark, her Galadriel's not easy to connect to. Like
she's not that likable.
Yeah, I'm not super emotionally connected. Yeah, to her, and you're not probably supposed to be. In fairness,
she's sort of. It's supposed to be aloof anyway, but
but in general, like a lot of the characters I don't really like, I haven't had a deep emotional connection to, but I feel like Sadok is one of those characters played by the great Sir Lenny Henry.
Yeah. Who you could
it was really
sympathize
sad
with him and like him because he wasn't like shoved in your face or anything, and he was everything he did was likable. He was kind of surly but like
he's like grumpy, but he's a good guy. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
He's wise and grumpy. He was
a great like patriarch sort of figure.
Yes. Yeah, he's a great pathfinder for the Harfoots.
Yeah,
and it's just sad that they killed off such a character that was a lot easier to connect to, I would say, than many of the characters on the show.
Yeah, and it was just kind of, well, first of all, the death scene was just so.
Yeah, where they're just sitting watching the sun come up.
Yeah, it just felt like a very good sort of conclusion for the climax of that, where it was like, all right, well, we can watch the sunrise again because this moment of evil has passed.
Yeah,
but I mean.
Yeah, it was an emotional moment. Yeah.
And they didn't have to help the stranger,
No, they really didn't. And they did anyway, because they felt it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, it was the right thing to do. And that's that's what, goodness is all about. And
yeah.
And ours too.
Yeah. But, without getting into a greater philosophical discussion about what is goodness versus evil. Are they constructs? Are they individual things? So, but
let's cut that off at the
we don't need to.
But what was the other?
It does work actually that we're going to have like the Southland story, the elf story, and like those all do connect. So that makes sense that we.
I figured for that impromptu. We didn't really have like that much of a structure for this, but impromptu. I was like, you know what? Let's just talk about the sort of independent storylines, and then we can go through the ones that are all tied together later.
And then we spent a lot of time on 2 of them.
Yes, but. Did you have something else?
Let's see.
You said something about the Harfoots.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So it was just Sadek's death was very moving and heartbreaking. I will say I feel a certain sense of loss that they separated Poppy and Nori, because I
Yeah,
really, Poppy should be Nori's Samwise, It's
yeah,
like, I know that's where they
they're
were going with. I just love their friendship, and it does bum me out that that those two are being split up. And I'm wondering if we'll see the Harfoots on their own, like, the
I
Harfoots
think we
again.
will,
I would hope so,
because,
honestly.
well, first of all, it's I think in Concerning Hobbits, they talked about how the hobbits sort of fled over the Misty Mountains to escape
Yeah.
the like corruption coming from the east and
Yeah.
the rising evil and everything. And obviously we're starting to see that. And Poppy, I mean, they sort of alluded to that when they said, "Oh, why don't you be the Pathfinder then?"
Yeah.
And she does a
got that little
smile.
Yeah.
I think that she is going to be sort of instrumental in getting them over the Misty Mountains and into Eriador.
Right. Yeah,
I think
I would expect that this show, assuming season 2 is enough of a success that they keep making the show, which I actually do
Fingers
hope
crossed.
they do. I really do. Yeah. I would expect that that's one of the things we'll see in the last season is the Harfoots coming into what will become the Shire. Yeah.
Yeah. Because basically everybody, I think they settle Bree first, the Harfoots.
Yes.
And then the stores go to the south, and I forget what the third Hobbit clan is.
Fallowhides.
Fallowhides are, I think, still like in the east somewhat.
The stores, I feel like, are the ones that hang out. They stick around the river, and they become like the Brandy Bucks who actually like use boats and stuff.
And they go to Tharbad, which is if you're looking at the map, it's at the Grey Flood, what is it? That river.
The Bruinen comes in with the River Horwell.
They go to Tharbad, which is kind of at where the river becomes big. That goes up towards the like Bree and that area.
Yeah,
so, and then they all
north-south road, and
they all converge into the Shire over time and are granted that land by Arnor. But we'll probably see that towards the end, like you said, if they make the show.
Yeah. Indeed.
But
I think that's all I have for those things.
Yeah, I think I covered just about everything. So we can wrap up, and I guess I'll start our wrap up here with a fun fact about Tolkien.
Yeah, let's do it. It's your turn to humiliate yourself. So
yeah. So, oh god. Fun fact about Tolkien. He had a 10.5-inch penis. It was it resides in Cambridge to be studied.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I
don't think we're going to be winning any Tolkien Society awards for this podcast.
Yeah. No, sorry. Yeah, I misread that code. That was my Ron Jeremy fun fact for my other podcast. No, Tolkien.
There are no fun facts about Ron Jeremy.
Yes, no, there aren't.
None of them are fun.
Let's circle around Tolkien. Somehow it's hard to get that first.
I think we should just
fact. Yeah, let's just keep it.
Let's just end this. No, I mean like the whole show, not the episode. Let's just call it.
Fair enough. We'll do the last episode of that, and my correction corner will require extra penance
of the Lord of the Wrongs. I mean, it's the Lord of the Wrongs, guys. We're not the Lord of the Rights. If you'd like to complain, please send an email to lordofthewrongs@gmail.com.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to spend my time in between episodes here coming up with a shorthand for, we'll talk about it soon, and self-flagellation. Because that was...
you need to
And a few Hail Marys while I'm at it.
Yeah, you have some serious work to do, my friend.
Well, on that note.
Join us next time for our third part of our Rings of Chowder.
The Rings of Chowder special.
Rings of Chowder special, where we will try to be as gentle as possible with the most egregious changes to the lore, I think, in the show. Yeah.
All right. So with that, we say Namarie.
Namarie, friends. Join us next time.